Now, the chapter two is the management environment. It's a simple chapter. It talks about what kind of environmental factors that managers must have to take care of, uh, while working at the workplace, and what do they have to do to make sure that they can perform really well and they can succeed. So, this chapter, the learning objectives, what is the external environment that they are dealing with, and why is that it's important, and how does it affect managers, and of course, internally, what's the importance of organization culture, and how does it affect also managers. And there are four functions basically: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. How does it affect them, the culture in the organization as well? So if we go back to external environment, I think you all understand this. All the forces that are outside of the organization, pretty much that the managers do not have control over. And these environmental factors affect every other organization, not just uh, a particular organization. External environment affects all organizations equally. So those forces, factors, situations, events which are happening outside of the company are systemic, and then they are actually affecting every organization. They're actually systematic. I should have said that, not systemic, systematic. And so that means they're affecting every other organization in the external environment. Yeah. So, what are the components of the external environment? This is pretty simple, straightforward. You're all aware of it. The political, legal environment that organizations work in. So, basically, if you're talking of, say, a company operating in US, they need to comply with US legislations, regulatory framework, compliance issues, which could be anything from equal employment opportunities, laws that deal with discrimination and stuff like that, and of course, as far as when it comes to environment and pollution and stuff like this. So there are legal issues with raising funds. How do you deal with the, trading your shares in the stock markets? So there are legislations for everything that you do as a company, whether you're raising money, whether you're trading your shares in stocks, and whether you're paying taxes, and whether you're complying with all kinds of regulatory authorities within the country. I mean, these factors affect every company. It's not a one particular company that has to be aware of it and comply, but every other organization has to do the same thing. Political, you understand this. The political stability of a country determines a lot of the policies that affect industries and companies. So if we have a stable political system like the US has, for example, so obviously it has an impact on how industries work, and there's continuity of policy. There is continuity of monetary, fiscal, economic policies of the government itself, and so it's much more easy because the environment itself is pretty much stable. It's not that you're going to have an unstable political environment, and obviously that affects everything else. So that's what is about the political and legal side of the environment and external environment. Then social cultural factors, those are again very important. We're talking about values, beliefs, culture, and the kind of societies that we live in, which has a bearing on the organization because that determines what kind of tastes and preferences and lifestyles that customers possibly have. And then, of course, organizations don't control socio-cultural factors because they are external to the organization itself, but they influence how we design products, what kind of value-added features do we have, how do we advertise these products, how do we market and sell them, how do we determine what exactly customers in a particular country, region, require or prefer. So social cultural factors, which includes values, beliefs, and cultural issues, and and also that determines lifestyles, preferences, tastes. So these factors are extremely important. They affect plenty of decisions that the organization has to take. Demographics, you understand, it could be age, the composition of the population, the per capita income, education levels. All these factors are having a bearing on the organization. Suppose you take Japan as a country. Japan has a pretty much relatively aging population. So obviously, if you have a country which has majority of the population being, they're aging, and their preferences, their tastes, their choices, the patterns of consumption of particular products, everything is different. And if I were to then compare and contrast with a country like India right now, 60% of India's population is, below the age of 35. So this is a country which has a huge population, which is below 35. I mean, so it's got a pretty young population. So obviously they need a separate set of services and products. They perhaps require jobs, they require education, they require training and vocational skills. They require small industries. There is plenty of potential, for all these small scale industries, if you might want to call it that. So demographics literally, has a bearing on just not one organization, but on plenty of the other organizations. Does anybody have a question here?
No, sir.
Okay. Technology, you also understand that the rate at which innovation happens has a bearing on the industry. Suppose you talk about Germany. Germany has had the reputation of extraordinary engineering skills, plenty of innovation in the field of engineering happening. And technology drives a lot of changes, even including the US. If you look at what Tesla has done, what Amazon has done in space technology, and plenty of others, companies which are there in the Fortune 500, they're driven by technology and the pace at which innovation can happen. So the patents that they're filing, the new products that they're creating, new technologies that they're developing, and that drives a particular organization. You have to compete. Unless you are up there, you'll perish, because competition is so intense, and technology, creation, development, and application of technology is so fast. Your company needs to adapt very quickly. Otherwise, you're going to be outsmarted by competition. Then you have economic factors, which are extremely important. If you see interest rates, for example, if the interest rates are very high, general public cannot have access to easy loans and money from banks and financial institutions to, say, invest in buying their own homes, or buying, cars or vehicles, or supporting their small businesses. Everything becomes much more difficult because interest rates in this particular country or region are extremely high. So is the case with inflation. Suppose you have a country with high inflation. So obviously, even if I'm getting paid decently in terms of wages, but because of inflation, everything is extremely expensive. So the real value of money that I'm earning in terms of wages or salary is way much lesser than what it might seem to be. Even if you gave me, like, say, $1,000, if you pay me a month, in India, that is a lot of money, but in the US, it's not, because everything is more expensive. So that's what we call as inflation. And then you're having a lot of things like, stocks, share markets, regulatory framework, and in terms of taxation. All these are economic factors. Then you have economic cycles. There is slowdown in the economy. There can be, uh, season cycles of boom or recession. So these economic cycles have a bearing on organizations, and not a single organization can control it. It affects every other organization. And yeah, what's inflation? Yeah, that's a simple question. Thank you for asking that. Inflation is basically when you have the prices of commodities, they're extremely high. You can either take a basket of commodities, which could be part of a wholesale price index. Some countries follow the wholesale price index. Some countries follow the CPI, which is the consumer price index. And every country has its own definition of what gets into that index. So you have, for example, I can take, because Avi is asking this question. India takes, for example, a basket of 30 commodities, most essential commodities, to determine where, the consumer price index, how expensive these products are currently. So they don't consider cars and vehicles as being necessary items in India. They actually, in India, the 30 commodities that they use for finding out the wholesale price or consumer price index are necessities, like food items, grocery items, and stuff like that. And other things are considered as luxury. Suppose a laptop is considered in India as luxury. Cars are considered as a luxury still. But I think the basket of items changes when you come to the United States. I think nobody can survive without a laptop or multiple devices, or at least maybe one or two cars even. So it could be the way you calculate it differs from one country to another, but it just is indicative. Inflation is indicating how expensive your prices are of commodities that you generally buy repeatedly. So that's inflation, and you don't want to be hurt by inflation because people have lesser disposable income. Suppose I spend a lot of my money in grocery and food items and stuff like that. I don't have extra money left with me to buy your product that your company is selling. But if everything is way cheaper, that means my buying capacity with the same salary is more, and therefore I'm actually able to. I'll give you this. It's a weird example, but I'll tell you this. In the UAE, in the United Arab Emirates, I was working there for NYT in Abu Dhabi. If my salary was $10,000, I got all the $10,000. There were no deductions because there are no taxes in the UAE. So for those who are not familiar with the Middle East, I'm sure some of the students in this class are familiar. But then in the UAE, for a good period of 7 years, I did not pay a penny tax. And I'm very grateful for that because I found all my salary in my bank account. That means I had more income. I had more disposable income that I could spend on other things like housing. I built a beautiful home in India thanks to the UAE, because there were no taxes. I built a beautiful home. I did not borrow a penny of money from the bank. I don't have loans, outstanding loans. I don't have them. I bought enough assets. I bought a lot of land, invested in land. I bought some gold. I diversified my investment portfolio thanks to the taxation policy. And this is an economic policy in the UAE. So obviously, it differs. Where you want to work, you need to make sure you understand the economic environment, whether you're having a business or whether you're just going there for employment. You got to understand all these factors together because they all affect how organizations work, and they also affect managers, they affect employees like me. So we go back to this slides. So what is the economy like today? And this is a good question. And global productivity is still slow. They're talking about, this slide is from 2017. Unfortunately, they thought it was slow for some other reasons. Now it's been slow because of the pandemic. Global trade is sluggish, which is true, and our supply chains are struggling right now. If you look at what is the biggest challenge of today's businesses, I think it's the supply chain. Everything has become more expensive. I know people who actually import, goods from all of the world, across the world, and they bring it to the U.S. All the big grocery retail stores that I know, and I have certain friends of mine who work there, and they tell me, a particular shipment would cost them way much lesser pre-pandemic. Once the pandemic hit the world, a shipment costs much more, like two times, sometimes even three times the original price. So all of us are affected. You and me, we are paying a little more on everything, on milk, on yogurt, on oranges, apples, or whatever vegetables that we're buying every day and day out. This is something that we cannot avoid. We are all paying a premium because of the pandemic, because every shipment that comes back and forth to the United States is more expensive because of the pandemic. So, how is the economy like today? It's not that great. It is very sluggish, which is true. US employment is up. I doubt, because right now, because of the pandemic, unemployment is up. So this 2017 story is not so relevant. Is the American dream still a possibility? I think with all the economy struggling, businesses closing, companies firing, not hiring, they're having a hiring freeze, and with the policies that are making it difficult for immigrants to come and find a job in the United States, the American dream is still that possibility, but it's becoming a distant dream. So I don't know. Hopefully things change for the world, and hopefully things change for America, and hopefully everything becomes better. We don't want to be wasting our money. We don't want to be losing jobs. We want our employment. We want to take good care of our families, and so our companies. They want to have and their business grow, and they want to expand their businesses, and they want to employ more people. So, the economy, the macro variables are very, very important. They have a bearing on everything. So, I know students, some of the students are not from business major. Guys, we're all affected. Whether you're an engineer, you're a doctor, any kind of profession you are, the business world is affecting you with or without your knowledge. So understanding macroeconomic variables, it's a very important thing for all managers at all levels. The sharing economy, asset owners can share with other individuals through peer-to-peer service for a set fee their underutilized physical assets or their knowledge or expertise, skills or time. Imagine if one of us were to lose our jobs. How long can I sit and just survive on my savings? I might do some freelancing. I might teach here, I might teach there, I might give some consulting service, I might do some training programs, I might participate in some research grants and do some research work. I need to support my family. And so is the same case with organizations. If they are not able to have demand for their products, and if they have production capacities lying idle, they do this. They rent out their manufacturing to someone else, or they manufacture products for someone else. So you need to do that, and that's what we call a sharing economy. Unless these are survival tactics. Survival mode is what most organizations are in right now because of the pandemic. And we got to do that unless we figure out other ways of how to use our existing resources, or maybe even give other companies our resources so that they can pay some fee for us for using our resources. Unless we know how to, even space. Maybe I don't need such a big space because my business is hurting. If my business is going down right now, I don't need so much space. What do I do? Do I sell it off? No. Maybe I'll rent out part of the space to someone else. And once my business comes back to normal, I can get it back, or I can open another location, for example. So there are many ways that companies have to understand what's happening in the macro environment and then come up with smart ways of doing things, which one of the thing that we just now discussed was sharing space, sharing capacity, the production capacity, or which we call generally as sharing economy. It's nice. Sharing is caring. So yeah. We have here, this slide is an interesting slide. It just talks about one of the important things that managers are somehow dealing with within the organization and outside of the organization is the different generations that we belong to. So I'll take my generation here. I think my generation is X. I was born in the early 1970s. So I belong to Generation X. So obviously, why are we supposed to be even knowing these generations? It's because we are interested to figure out what are we dealing with. Suppose you treat me as a customer, you should know that Prabhakar belongs to Generation X and he has certain preferences. He might not be so good with technology. Even if technology is there, it should be terribly easy. You can't make it tough for him. He cannot probably multitask as well as you guys do. So, and his tastes and preferences are not so flashy, nor not so adventurous, will not take so much of a risk. So there are many things. And I look for security, I look for continuity, and look for stability. And that's a generation thing. I'm just talking about myself, Generation X, because I belong to this age group. I was born between this time. And progressively, and it also applies to customers, it applies to employees. So if you're having somebody to deal with who's born here as an employee and you're my manager, you better know that I have a particular way of thinking, not because I choose to, but because I belong to that generation. I was raised that way, and I had similar experiences with those guys who were born between 65 and 1980. And I share certain values with the same set of people, and I behave similarly, if not exactly the same, but I behave similarly. I react in similar ways. So as my manager, you would say, okay, I know why Prabhakar is saying this. I know what his approach is. And if you're dealing with me as a customer, say, I know what kind of customer needs Prabhakar has. I might want to go and ask him, is this true? I have this feeling that you have these are must be your preferences. Is this true? So do a customer survey for people who belong to my generation and figure out exactly what we require. You might create a model of a computer or a laptop or any technology or a service which my generation appreciates. And so is the case. This, whatever I explained for Generation X, applies to Generation Y. I have a lot of cousins of mine, brothers, sisters, and a lot of family, extended family, who born in this particular age. They're very different. And then I have my son, and even my daughter actually. So both of them born in this. They're Zoomers or Generation Z. Very different. They know, they have access to internet. They have access to computers. I had to be in my MBA to see my first computer. Can you imagine that? And my daughter had a tablet and was operating on an Android system as soon as she was 1 year old. You could just not take the tab away from her. So just look at that. I never saw a computer till I was in MBA. My daughter, when she was 1 year, she knew how to. She couldn't even speak, but she knows how to, unlock the tab and browse and go and look at YouTube and start watching some, stuff. How? It just is the generation. So their preferences, their consumption, their spending patterns, their preferences, their taste, everything is so different. And then you have this generation alpha. Have had the chance to meet some of my extended family in here in New York. They're like 3 years, for 4 years. Some of them are 5 years, and they have choices. They know which colors, they know which brands. I never knew something like a brand when I was so small. But those 4 years and 5 years, no brands. I'm like, wow, impressive. It's not just about colors anymore. It's about even brands. Generation Alpha. So you got to know that this is what's happening with customers. This is what will happen with employees. I'm sure Generation Alpha, it'll take a time before they become employees. Generation Z, these guys may take a while before they become employees. But several millennials have already become employees. So they need something that's exciting. They need something that's hands-on, not like lecture, lecture, lecture like me right now. You guys you feel bored. You're like, what's going on? This is a boring class. So we have to find ways to engage students of all generations. Professor Abs, the managers tend to have very decisive quality to them, and it's certainly a valuable quality in a manager is that this is a natural trait that becomes stronger through experience, or can this be developed over time with just experience and education? Yeah, good question. My personal take on this, none of us is going to be having all the qualities or traits or characteristics that make a great manager. We all learn by experience, but there are certain things that we come with, unique abilities, personality traits that we are blessed with as soon as we're born, because we inherit a plenty of great things from our parents and from people around us as we grow up. So I think there are certain things that we are blessed to have. And then there are a lot of things that we begin to learn from experience, from people around us, from colleagues around us. So it's a combination of both. And that shapes also who we are as people and our personalities. And eventually we begin to realize we are not just managers, we might have this leadership qualities as well. We're capable of thinking in the larger interest, and we are capable of having a bigger vision, and we are capable of inspiring other people into that vision, and we are also capable of incentivizing action so that you mobilize action of others towards achieving that vision. So these things happen over a period of time. We begin small, like all of us have to. We take baby steps as we embark on our careers. But you will discover, like Tanvir was asking this question, you will probably realize, wow, I never knew I could do this so well. And you will say, wow, I never knew I could lead, and I lead really well. So how do you begin to discover yourself is just getting that experiences. When I say experience, it's just not going to a company and working. You're traveling, you're talking to people, life events. All this is experience. And of course education, credentialing, certification, that's experience. Nobody is born leader, nobody is born smart, and nobody is born blessed with everything. We have certain blessings that we have, and there are many things that we need to work on, and we always have scope for improvement. And there's no it's a journey. It's not going to be that we have arrived at a place and then we need to think we know everything. No, there are many things, hundreds and millions of things that I'm simply unaware of. When compared to this class, I know very little. You guys are like, 20 plus students in this class. You're any day better than your professor. I'm not saying that to make you feel good. I mean it. You're all any day better than your professor, at least me. I can't talk on behalf of our other professors, because you're extremely talented, you got the exposure, you got the experience, you've had life experiences which I took a long time to have. You got them quick. So you're in a better place in terms of technology, in terms of credentials, everything. You're way ahead. Now it's up to you how you make it count. Whatever little I had, whatever little we had the opportunity to leverage, I really made good use of it to reach this far. But if you guys can use what you have rather than worry about what you don't have, I think that's the key. Just keep pegging away. Learn from every day, learn from every experience, learn from every individual. And then the more you do that, the faster is your growth. The trajectory of learning should be steep, and the trajectory of your growth should be also very steep. And you can do that if you can come out of your comfort zone and explore and expand your avenues. That's how you should do. There is something in management which is, I think I can stop here and I'll share something here. Guys, if you ask me a question, then I'm happy because I can actually discuss something that's beyond the general class. So they call this as the T principle. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Suppose you have different skills here. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. These are all different skills. Maybe accounting, technical, engineering, marketing, sales, I don't know, communication, technology, software, coding, data analytics. I'm just putting all those skills. These are so many skills. Can we be good in everything? There's no way I can be good in everything. Oh, we have only limited number of years on our side and we have limited time, only 24 hours in a day. How can I be good in everything? So I should be good at least in one skill. Otherwise, I'll be lost. I'll be a jack of all trades but master of none. So I need to be good at least in something here. Okay. And as Tanvir was pointing out, over a period of time, what happens? I become good in the second one. Over a period of time, I become a good in the third one. I become good in the fourth category. The T is becoming broad. It's becoming wider. That means I can do finance, I can do sales, I understand marketing, I do analytics, I take good decisions, I'm a good communicator, I become a good leader. That making the T, this is like a T, right? They call this the T. These are the breadth of the skills and this is the depth of the skill. So I need at least one skill where I have in-depth knowledge and expertise, but then that keeps on increasing over a period of time. I become good in several things. So I tried to explain to you that you have all your life ahead of you, you have great opportunities ahead of you, so please make good use of it. Okay. I'm just, I digressed. It's nothing to do with generations, but you are blessed that way and you have to make it count, please. So, how does external environments affect managers? Yeah, jobs and employment, it does affect. Whatever happens in the society, what happens in the political scenario, what happens with, changes in economic policies, what happens with customer preferences and tastes, what happens with your generations that are employed with you. That's going to affect managers because we are dealing with that. We are taking decisions to cope with these kind of changes, assessing environmental uncertainty, and that's the key. The environment is not static; it's always changing. And I think the pandemic just showed, nothing is predictable. Everything can change. People are asking me, what will happen in March? What will happen in September? As if I know. None of us know. So we're just making guesses. We're just preparing. We're planning. We have plan A, plan B, plan C. We're hoping that one of those plans will work, but nobody is certain. So same is the case with companies. It's a very uncertain period. And that means you need more data, more planning, and more approaches, more alternatives. So that if one fails, at least you go back to the second one or the third one. And do you have an exit? Do you have an exit strategy? If you're caught in a very difficult situation, can you come out of that particular business with minimum loss or minimum damage? So there are, you have to have a contingency plan for everything because we are dealing with extreme uncertainty. Managing stakeholder relationships. Now, I cannot tell you how important it is for you to realize that your employees are perhaps the most important stakeholders. As a manager, as a company owner, I think you have to figure out your employees. You really need to care and understand how you want your employees to behave and perform. Unless you take good care of your employees, how are you going to get new customers? How are these employees going to treat your external stakeholder, which is customers? How are they going to deal with suppliers? How do they deal with shareholders? How do they deal with government agencies? How do they deal with all the other stakeholders, unions, and plenty of other people if they are not happy, if they are not treated well, if they are not trained? So all stakeholder relationships, whether they're external relationships, stakeholders, or whether they're internal stakeholders, you got to understand who your stakeholders are. Likewise, even me as a professor, I better understand my customers, my students are the most important. The better I serve them, the greater I have a chance of keeping my job, the greater is the chance that School of Management will grow, that New York Tech will continue to, expand. All that is possible if I understand I'm here to serve my students, my internal stakeholders. Same is the case with if I'm the boss of New York Tech, I understand that I need to treat my faculty well. I need to treat and train my staff well. I need to pay them. I need to be fair and just because then they treat my students really well. They're trained, they're informed, and they're recognized. So they will also do the same thing to their students, and who are the core of everything. Likewise, how do we reach out to industry? How do we maintain networks so that we can get jobs for our students? How do we get internships for our students? Do we collaborate with other institutions, institutions, so that we can see? If I send you one semester to France, to Paris, for example, for finishing off your whatever major that you're taking, one semester you go to the Middle East, for example. I know NYU, for example, New York University. We had NYU campus in Abu Dhabi, and they used to, what they used to do, they used to send one semester to Paris, another semester to New York, and then they do the remaining semesters in Abu Dhabi. That's a beautiful model. Why not? Students, when they're doing bachelors, they get an opportunity to travel and stay and learn and exchange ideas and interact with people from different cultures, different countries, and still do their academics. What an opportunity! When I was doing my bachelor's, I would have not thought even something like that could be possible, not even in my dreams. And this is just happening as if it's what's the big deal? It's an obvious thing. We should be doing it. So I'm trying to tell you how you need to think. So if NYU is sending students to Paris, they have collaborated with another university in Paris. If they're sending somewhere else in Abu Dhabi, they collaborate there. So they're building external relationships. They're building partnerships, and they know how to treat their customers or their students really well. They're engaging faculty from different institutions. So these are all important stakeholders for a university like ours. So here is stakeholders, any constituencies in any organization's environment that are affected by what the company does, and also the company is affected by what they do. So who are our stakeholders? Employees, unions, shareholders, communities, suppliers, media, government, trade and industry associations, competitors, social and political action groups, customers. I wish they could put customers in the center. Okay, anyway, so basically that's what I'm trying to say. So you've got to understand all these stakeholders, their needs, their demands, their expectations. We have to understand them as managers. If we don't understand any of these stakeholders' needs, demands, and expectations, we might be doing things which might not have the impact that we want. We are not effective. So if we want to create the right impact and we want to grow as a company, it's not about my decision is correct. It's about what does the customer need. It's not that I'm the boss, so I take the perfect decision. It's about how do I motivate my employees. It's not about, yeah, we don't care. It's about how do we make sure the communities that we are operating are happy, right? So it's not about me, and it's not about me as an individual. It's about how we interact with all these stakeholders. It's a team it's like systems approach. We're all connected, dear. That's the beauty of management. If you understand management the right way, what happens in China affects people everywhere in Europe. What happens in China affects people in Asia. What happens in China affects people and companies and economies in US. And the same thing, what happens in the US and US policies affecting everyone. So we're all interconnected. The faster that we realize it's not politics, it's business and economic growth, which is important. Tell me, what do we have to do with politics on a day to day basis? We would be happy to have our job. We want our companies to grow. We want to be paid equitably. We want decent, life for our kids and our future. We want to pay our bills and for our medical insurance. See, if this is the case, we're not talking about Republicans or Democrats here. We're just talking about our lives. So economics, business, I think is the core. The moment you start talking this, you take out politics out of the equation, you take out religion out of the equation, then we understand, come on, let's work together. We can solve it. We might have differences, let's negotiate. Let's continue to talk. It's not like, I don't like you. No, we don't do that. So business is all about that, understanding your stakeholders, demands, expectations, and then reaching that win-win situation. We want to have a dialogue so that we can achieve at a strategy which is win-win. It should benefit you, it should benefit us. That's what it is. Can lead to desirable organization. I spoke about it. It can affect organizational performance. Of course, it does. Demonstrate doing the right thing because we understand stakeholders. And it's also, if you see what companies do today, corporate social responsibility, that's again towards this. Your organization wants to be perceived as a responsible citizen. Your organization wants to be perceived by governments that permit you to go to their countries as being responsible towards the planet, towards the communities that they operate in. So I think building that goodwill, building that brand image and reputation is such a key thing. And that means you care for your stakeholders and the relationships that you have with your stakeholders. Same is the case with you guys. You have to build, trust me, it's not about getting a good grade in my course that will determine how successful you will be in future. What really would determine how far you will reach is the relationships that you build, the networks that you create. And it's never too early, never too late to build those relationships. I can't simply say, oh, I can I'm too new in the United States, so I cannot build networks. I cannot do anything. I thought the same way. I'm giving you my example. I thought, oh gosh, I don't have connections with the industry, so what am I going to do? Can I do something meaningful with the industry? Maybe not. And you won't believe it, in the last 2.5 years, bless the School of Management and their professors and the Director of Experiential Education, I've got an opportunity to work with 5 different companies in the last 2.5 years. Meaningful projects, which got my students 2 internships. 2 of my students have been placed with them for money. They get paid. I don't really, care if it counts for my service or not. When my students get internships, oh man, that is so satisfying. That's what I'm trying to say. It's never too late, never too early to think you can build networks and relationship. You have to do that if you want to succeed. That will tell you the extent to which you will progress in life. So culture. We come to the last point here in today's class, which is culture. Now, culture is this set of values, beliefs, assumptions, artifacts, rituals, the stories, the folklore that you get to hear in organizations. So, when you actually get to good organizations, you hear a lot. What are the shared values? Do we all value time? Do we value quality? It's not about me or you individually. It's about all of us. Do we value quality? If you go to, the classic example, suppose you read the book Made in Japan, Akio Morita, the founder of Sony Corporation in Japan. If you read his book, it's all about how they have shared vision. It's about teamwork. They value teamwork. They value team goals and team rewards. And they value innovation. The number of innovations that Sony has historically done. Sony is not the best performing company in terms of, say, Apple or Samsung or Xiaomi or Huawei or these big companies, Alibaba, Tencent. They're way bigger than Sony. But safely I can go back to Sony as an example. They continue to innovate. That's part of their culture. If you see how they have innovated in terms of camera sensors, they continue to innovate like crazy. So 3M as a company, the American company called 3M, The culture, it's an innovation culture. They're always looking at how to bring people from different backgrounds and different expertise together to find out how they can improve existing products, how can they create new products. 3M, I'm a big fan of 3M as a company, because if you go to the 3M website when you have time, you should do that. They have beautiful videos on their innovation, what do you call, periodic table. They have innovations on the processes, the mentorship. Any junior person who joins the company, he has two or three mentors. They become part of several teams that are working on great product ideas. It's just incredible, the 3M culture. They value individuals, they value uniqueness, they value ideas. They don't discount you and then say, oh, this is not a great idea. They will try out every single idea till they find that it cannot be commercially converted into a product. If it doesn't work, they have learned that it doesn't work. That's how they look at it. They're willing to invest time, resources, and they bring smart people together. And their culture really supports them to continue. They have 100,000 plus patents. Can you imagine a one single company having 100,000 plus, more than 100,000 patents, new technologies? So culture is such a driving force, and that's a strong culture. It's very pervasive culture. It's not shared by one individual or XYZ individual. Even if some people leave 3M, new blood comes into 3M, fresh generations come into 3M. The culture is so intense. It keeps going. So it's not dependent on few people. It's not like, oh, this guy left, so the whole company collapsed. No. So creating a strong organization culture is important, because you want to leave a legacy behind, not just, after you leave, it just becomes ruins. You don't want to do that, because so many people's lives depend on that. And you created something amazing. So let create it in such a way that it can continue. So culture is perceived, descriptive, shared. So it's perceived. It's culture is something you cannot touch. I'll tell you another, because we spoke 3M's culture, Sony Corporation's culture. I can give you an example of India. There are few people who go to India and say, "Oh, I'm not going to go back there. It's too difficult, and it's a big shock for me. I just cannot. I cannot survive." I've seen people who go to India, they don't want to leave India. Says they say Mother India has changed them forever. What does this mean? It's perception. Culture is something you cannot touch. You feel it, you can experience it, but it's something that's not tangible like a book or a piece of furniture. So if you go with that open mindset to a country like India, it can first, at the beginning, it can put you off, it can shock you. But if you go there with an open mind and embrace things the way they are, then you begin to experience, then you begin to perceive, feel. I think that applies to every country. The moment I go to any other country, only thing I say, come on, don't be judgmental, don't be evaluative. It's not for me to assess somebody or assess a country on the culture. Just embrace it, experience it, and then you start learning, and then you start appreciating. That is when you have a chance to grow and be part of that culture. So for me, perceived culture, it's so strong. If you go to Google, for example, you can perceive the strong culture. It's shared. You can describe it. It's descriptive. You can say, let's see, when they meetings in Google are different. Work at Google is organized differently. There's plenty of flexibility. Innovation is always in the air. Ideas are all generated, they are shared. It's not like I have an idea, I don't want to share it with you guys because it's my idea. It's not like that. In Google, ideas are shared, but people get recognized for what they're willing to share. And then they get the support to work on those great ideas. And because of flexibility, they feel, this is a place where we go and enjoy. We are most productive here. We can be recognized for who we are. We don't do routine stuff. We don't do just the chores, but we do something that's exciting, that we are passionate about doing. So culture is something that is perceived, that can still be described, like the way I'm trying to describe Google's culture or Sony Corp culture or 3M culture or perhaps India's culture. It can be described, and it's shared. It's very strong. It's immersive. Strong cultures have a huge impact on managers and employees, the way we work, the way we plan, the way we organize, how we lead, and how we control. Okay, so guys, when you start up your own company, I think you have to pay attention to culture, because culture comes from the vision, the mission, the founder's philosophy, the values that the founding chairman or board of directors have, and all the great whatever policies and events that happen at the workplace. How you have treated people, how did you go out of the way to treat your customers, these wonderful stories. I remember, say, as an example of another Japanese company called Matsushita. It's Panasonic as the brand. They have a vision and a mission statement that every employee reads every day, like a prayer. They read every day. The mission and vision statement of the company, every employee reads every day morning, just to remind them we are not manufacturing televisions, we are not just manufacturing laptops or cameras or something. We are a company that's driven by teams that we enjoy coming here. We want to innovate. We want to make customers happy. We want to be recognized for excellence. There are beautiful things that we stand for, not just these laptops and mobile phones and stuff, because these products can be relevant today. They can be gone tomorrow. But the company stays, the culture stays. We continue to innovate. So I just tried to explain to you how culture has a bearing. Okay, different dimensions of culture. First one here on the left side, I'll point this out: innovation and risk taking. I think 3M as a company, innovation and risk taking, they encourage small teams to work and take risk and continue to innovate. Attention to detail, companies that are into auditing, say, for example, Deloitte or Price Waterhouse Coopers. I mean, these companies, auditing companies, their cultures are, they pay attention to detail. All consulting companies pay attention to detail. Outcome orientation, companies that are very aggressive with outcome. They want numbers, they want sales. I don't know whether I can give you an example specific to outcome orientation, but they're driven by numbers. They're driven by, getting something done. People orientation, I've seen a lot of, organizations which look as if they're technology driven, but they're actually people driven. I can give an example. Suppose you go to any of those hospitals, good hospitals. What do you think makes a good hospital? Is it just the technology that's available, which is very important? Is it just the equipment that they have or the medicine and stuff that they have access to? Or is it the quality of doctors and paramedics and nurses and whoever is being the staff of that particular hospital? It's people orientation here. You wouldn't go to a hospital just because it looks big and beautiful and it's got the most expensive equipment and they give you a list of tests that you should do. You want to go to that particular doctor who understands, who listens, is good at diagnosis, who's helped you in the past come out of difficult situations, and he is also supported by a team. So people orientation, every service industry I think of, like tourism, hotels, restaurants, it should be people orientation. It's not about how big a space that you give me to stay on my vacation. It's about the quality of service that I'm happy with. So I think people orientation is so important as being, a driver. Other things are important. Good infrastructure, good buildings, good food and beverages. You put all the infrastructure in place, but you need to drive it through people. Team orientation, I just gave you an example of Sony Corp. Aggressive. I'm tempted to think Tesla is here. They're so aggressive with their, push towards space technology. We'll put somebody on Mars. We'll put somebody on, I don't know, Jupiter or Saturn. It's very aggressive, but they're doing really great. I mean, they're, even if you look at their stock prices. A couple of months ago, I remember my wife was investing in Tesla stocks, and the shares were about 500, something dollars. I told her, continue to invest in Tesla. It's expected to hit at least $1,000, and it's about 800 plus dollars today. She took my word. She actually listened. Not often does she take my advice, but she did, and she has about 20 shares, and she's made money in Tesla. But they're very aggressive. Stability, I think maybe even Sony fits in there. They're not very aggressive. They've come out from mobile. They don't produce as many mobile phones these days. They slowed down on several industries. Stability for them is important because they made losses for the last 16 years. Some businesses of theirs are doing good. Some businesses are really struggling. The mobile industry is not doing great for them. Camera sensor business does very good. Sony Entertainment, they do pretty good. So, stability is important when you're making losses, when you're in difficult times. As much as you want to innovate, you might also want to be stable. So where does culture come from? Yeah, culture comes from the mission of the founder. I said that, and it comes from the values. I gave you the example of Akio Morita, and even if you say Apple, plenty of what Apple is today, they have to owe it to Steve Jobs, and then of course Tim Cook, and then he just continued to be a great leader for them. So it stems from the values that the company shares, and then the vision and mission that it has, and you actually get the culture from there. Founders can impose their vision, share it, set collective aspirations free, and it's also shared from the history, who we are, and right, and look at the narratives and rituals. I spoke about Matsushita Panasonic, where they let their employees repeat the mission and vision every day like a prayer. Symbols, artifacts, how the easiest examples that I can think of are hotels. Like if you go to Emirates Palace Hotel in Abu Dhabi, it's a seven-star hotel. Everything is so big and so gorgeous. It just speaks about they want to simply give you the best. They did not have to say it. By the way they lay out their hotel, the Emirates Palace Hotel, or even say Burj Al Arab, you go to these places, everything is so fine, everything is so exquisite, everything has to be the best. So they're just sending you a strong signal. We have a culture. We do not compromise on quality. We do not compromise on experience. They've said that by material symbols and the layout and the material that's being used, the furnishings that are used. Language, of course. I think that's a key. Most companies, suppose if we have a small little business where we are saying, oh man, the pandemic has hit, I don't think we will survive. There might be another company in our similar position. They may say, oh, the pandemic has hit. We need to change strategy. We have to come out of this. We'll find a way. We know how to think outside the box. We will be creative. We'll be innovative. We'll do that extra bit for our customers because they're hurting because of the pandemic. So the language, the same situation can be looked at very pessimistically. The same situation can be looked at as an opportunity to grow and to think outside the box, to change the format. Let's go online. People are not coming to our shop anymore because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown. Why not use online? It's forced us to think outside the box. Let's do it now. So there are plenty of things to do with language. So don't ask yourself, oh man, what a situation. Why me and why am I hurting always? Why is that I'm unlucky? Use the words, yeah, should I how to make use of this situation? How do I grab opportunity? How do I create opportunities? That's what is language. Effect on employees, I think I explained that. Effect on managers, it does affect everyone literally. Strong cultures are, those are deeply held and widely shared. You don't want to have a company which doesn't have a culture, because weak cultures are not, you cannot perceive a weak culture. You just don't know where the company is at. What is valuable in this company? We don't know. What do the employees think about? Do they feel proud of something? Do they know why they feel they should stay in this company? If they cannot answer these questions, that means it's not a strong culture, it's a weak culture. So to be honest, we want to create companies that have strong cultures, and they're widely shared, not by few people at the top. Every person, even the last guy in the organization, should feel proud and share the same values, the same belief systems, and he should be able to share the same, stories and folklore. And then because that will help him serve customers better. At the end of the day, that's the key. So the strong cultures can substitute formal rules and regulations. They create some sense of predictability, orderliness, consistency. They support innovation. They support risk taking. They support organizational citizenship behavior. You will go outside the way to help because you feel proud to be part of this company. But if you just go by the word of the, by the word itself, and you say, oh, this is not part of my job description, what a shame. You don't feel proud to be part of this company. So I think that's the key. Strong cultures can have a huge effect. 10% of executives say that they have not identified or communicated an organization culture, sympathies with them. They have not been lucky to be part of a great company. So, how does it affect managerial decisions? I was telling you this planning. Suppose we are involved as a manager in planning, and how does culture affect planning? The risk that is being taken, like see, 3M again. whether plans should be developed by individuals or teams. Is it a team culture, or is it we just don't care for teams? It's some individual making the plan. The degree of environmental scanning in which management will engage. Do we do a thorough understanding of how it's going to affect whatever decisions we're taking? How does it affect communities, the planet, the environment? Culture. It's the outlook. Say Starbucks, when they do business, they're taking care. How do they give fair trade to the farmers who are selling coffee beans to Starbucks? They give them input, they give them training, they help them grow better coffee, and they give them fair price when they sell and procure these coffee beans from the farmers. Fair trade, support, training, information to farmers. It speaks about Starbucks. I'm not saying Starbucks is the best company out there, but I'm telling you good things that Starbucks does. Organizing. How much autonomy should be designed into employees' jobs? What freedom do they have? Can they make mistakes? Whether tasks should be done by individuals or in teams. See, I cannot tell you how important teamwork is. 3M again has hundreds of teams, literally, simultaneously working on several product improvements and developments. The degree to which department managers interact with each other, collaboration, sharing of best practices, cross fertilization of ideas, that's organizing. That's determined by the culture that we have in the company. And then leading, the degree to which managers are concerned with increasing employees' job satisfaction. It's just not the outcome. I'll give you this strange situation. Suppose you guys put a lot of effort at the workplace when you're doing a job, but the outcome is not very great. And I just take into consideration only outcomes. Are you happy? As your manager, I only consider outcomes. Are you happy? If I don't consider your efforts, tell me.
No,
No.
no.
Yeah.
Ah.
So if I'm smart enough as a manager because I'm driven by my company's culture, I'll say, okay, guys, I understand the pandemic is making you hurt. It's not getting you the kind of outcomes that you hope to get. But I also notice that you put extra efforts. If we are still doing okay, it's because of your efforts. I want to appreciate that. Maybe I cannot reward you with a monetary, bonus or a reward here because we are all in crisis. But I know what you guys are doing to help. So when the business gets around and when we start doing better, you have my word that you take away your bonus and extra incentive. You deserve the good things. So what leadership styles are appropriate? So the culture that I'm talking as if I'm the manager, guys. So, it's easy to fire people, but it takes a leader to know how to retain people. It's just not one individual XYZ that you're firing. You literally are destroying their family, the support system for the family. So I think as managers, we should be smart. Not necessarily we have to keep spending organizational resources and put the company in a bigger crisis, but come out with smart ways of dealing with the problem. Whether all disagreements and even constructive ones should be eliminated. So culture will tell you whether you're okay taking suggestions and somebody criticizing you and how open you are. Controlling whether to impose external controls or allow employees to control their own actions. Empowerment is important, right? If I tell you exactly, by the way, this is my style, guys, I will not go after each one of you and tell, did you do your job? Did you do your job? Did you do your assignment? I don't do that. I can help you. Suppose your team says, let's have a breakout room session, Professor. We want to meet you so that we discuss our project. I'm happy to join. But I will not go after you and impose my control. I'm not like that because I know you're all equally capable. I trust in your abilities. That's my culture. I don't know from where I got it, from the companies that I work, from the school that I studied in, and from the country I belong to. That's my nature. I trust all of you are equally capable and you're all better than me. This is how I think, and that doesn't change. And it sticks because I respect people to that extent. What criteria should be emphasized in employee performance evaluation? Is it outcomes or it's also effort? What repercussions will occur from exceeding one's budget? How much of risk can you take? Risk taking propensity, that's part of the culture. If I do one little mistake, I'll be fired. This is culture of one company. If I do a mistake, they'll figure out, okay, but don't repeat the mistake. Did we learn something from the mistake? And what were the circumstances you made that mistake? Can we learn from that? And how can we do things better? Do you have a better idea? Do you have a better approach? That's another company's culture because they can take in more risk and they appreciate people trying something outside the box. Okay, I'll keep the lesson short and simple. I don't want to talk too much. I talk a lot anyways. So that finishes off my chapter, okay? So if you have questions, please feel free to ask.